Nicki Minaj, the American rapper, and her music have been banned from Zurich's queer clubs and bars in Switzerland. Apparently, Minaj is now anti-queer, transphobic, and homophobic. Her music has been banished by a man who has appointed himself the moral custodian of gay nightlife in Zurich. That man is called Marco Ulik, proprietor of the queer clubs Heaven, Queer, and Boyakasha. Heaven and Queer, two of his free clubs, are located in Zurich's Old Town. Mr. Ulik is also a board member of Zurich Pride, and he describes himself as an advocate for a vibrant, diverse, and safe nightlife. We'll return to that word safe because it does an astonishing amount of ideological lifting here. Mr. Ulik took offense after Minaj appeared at America Fest last December and spoke with Erika Kirk, the widow of the late Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA. In that conversation, Minaj praised Donald Trump, criticized California's Governor Gavin Newsom, and rejected Newsom's idea that children should be encouraged towards gender transition to become trans. "It's okay," Minaj said. "Be boys. There is nothing wrong with being a boy," Minaj said. Swiss media promptly translated this into heresy, hostility towards trans people, they wrote. Mr. Ulik agreed. The result? A total purge. Minaj's music, once a staple of Zurich's queer dance floors, is no longer welcome. DJs have been instructed not to play her tracks anymore. This is not, Mr. Ulik insists, a boycott, it is a consistent stance. Language, as ever, is used here not to clarify reality, but to obscure it. When you deliberately remove an artist from playlists, instruct staff to enforce it, and announce it publicly as moral punishment, that is a boycott. No amount of euphemistic hand-waving can launder this fact. Ulik doesn't reject the word boycott because it's inaccurate, he rejects it because it names the thing far too honestly. It's almost cute. He makes coercion sound like it's got a conscience of some kind. Let's call this what it is. Ideological enforcement. Ulik has decided that his venues must reflect the values of our community. The sleight of hand is obvious. Which community? Certainly not all gays, not even most gays, rather a narrow activist subculture that has successfully convinced itself that disagreement equals danger and heresy and that discomfort is indistinguishable from harm. There is something grimly comic and ironic, isn't there, about watching censorship march back into gay life under the rainbow flag. We gays spend decades fighting the straight world for the right to speak, flirt, offend, provoke, and live without permission, only to find ourselves, at long last, policed by our very own. This becomes clearer when one looks at Ulik's proudest invention, the crowning glory of his contribution to queer nightlife in Zurich, his awareness team. Yes, you heard that right, it's an awareness team. Founded in 2020, this team patrols Zurich's Old Town on weekend nights, moving between queer venues to protect guests and raise awareness. Just picture it. Pink-shirted monitors roaming cobblestone streets like pastel-colored commissars, scanning the air for wrong thoughts, ready to intervene at a moment's notice if someone says something insufficiently affirming, insufficiently woke. One almost admires the audacity. We used to fear police raids. Now we get internal patrols by the Rainbow Gestapo, armed with clipboards. Once the straight world told us what we could say. Now it's gays telling other gays to watch their mouths, for their own good, of course. The central assumption behind all of this is that gay people are fragile, that we must be shielded from dissenting opinions lest we shatter to bits. That hearing a pop star say, boys can be boys, constitutes a threat requiring institutional response. This is infantilization, pure and simple. It reduces grown men and women, many of whom lived through genuine hostility, violence, and exclusion, to nervous children in need of constant supervision. The irony is quite rich. Gay liberation was precisely a rejection of this posture. We demanded to be treated as adults, capable of choosing our lovers, our politics, our jokes, and even our art. We fought against the idea that someone else, priests, psychiatrists, or politicians knew what was best for us. And now Mr. Marco Ulick wants to be our new chaperone, deciding which beats we can dance to on the dance floor and which opinions are too dangerous to coexist with disco lights. Even worse, this enforcement is carried out in the name of an ideology that is itself deeply homophobic. The contemporary trans movement and its ideology insists that same-sex attraction is suspect unless it is constantly redefined around gender identity. Gay men are told that their attraction to male bodies is genital preference or a genital fetish. Lesbians are scolded for rejecting men who claim to be lesbians in their spaces. Children who would once have grown up to be gay are now told they might be born in the wrong body and are medicalized, heterosexualized accordingly. Many gay people see this very clearly. Many of them agree with Minaj, not because they hate trans people or love Donald Trump, but because they recognize a dangerous ideology, a dangerous dogma when they see one. They understand that childhood discomfort does not require puberty blockers and that stereotypes about boys and girls do not justify lifelong medical intervention. These are not fringe views among gays. They are quite common. More common than you might think. They are simply not permitted and not uttered because people like Mr. Ulick, the woke queer mob, have created a climate of fear backed by cancel culture and the threat of exclusion in the gay scene, which accordingly has rebranded itself as queer. Just try expressing gender-critical views in one of Ulick's clubs. You will quickly learn the price of dissent. Question the Minaj ban and you are unwelcome. Attempt to discuss it with staff and you will be shut down. Speak to other patrons and the awareness team will glide in, all smiles and authority, to restore harmony by ending the conversation right then and there. What kind of community requires coerced unanimity to thrive and flourish? What kind of liberation movement punishes disagreement? Ulick's venues do not foster diversity. They enforce conformity to a crazy orthodoxy. They are not safe spaces, they are sanitized ones, stripped of the very roughness, humor, and argument that once made gay culture vibrant. And let's not pretend this is about protecting marginalized people from harm. No one is injured by a Nicki Minaj song. No one is endangered by hearing an opinion they dislike. The real function of these bans is moral signaling, public declarations of virtue designed to reassure activists that the right slogans are being upheld and that woke dogmas are not being contravened. The cost, of course, is paid by everybody else. By the gays who just want to dance, by the lesbians tired of being lectured, by the men who remember when clubs were places of escape, not ideological training grounds, by a gay culture that is drained of energy, disempowered by the idea that men can become women and vice versa. Ulick's genius, such as it is, lies in his ability to exercise corrosive authority while insisting that he is doing no such thing. You see, he does not ban, he reflects values. He does not police, he raises awareness. He does not exclude, he creates safety. This is the language of every administrator who wishes to rule without being accused of ruling, a talent perfected by those who understand that power is most effective when it insists it does not exist. And what is the danger from which we must now be protected? A pop star with unapproved opinions? A sentence suggesting that boys might be allowed to remain boys? For this, music must be erased, DJs instructed, and conversation chilled. The art can no longer be held separate from the artist. One might have assumed that the community which survived actual persecution could withstand a lyric or two. Apparently not, at least not under current management. The presiding assumption is clear and quite revealing. Gay people are delicate. We cannot be trusted with ambiguity, irony, or dissent. We must be shielded from disagreeable ideas, lest we suffer an episode. It is a charmingly old-fashioned view, this belief that homosexuals require constant supervision, though one had hoped it died with the psychiatrists of yore. So no, Mr. Ulick, we do not need your protection. We do not need awareness patrols to monitor our conversations. We do not need DJs acting as ideological gatekeepers. And we certainly do not need pop music censored on our behalf. We are adults. We can hear opposing views without collapsing. We can dance to Nicki Minaj without absorbing her politics. We can coexist with disagreement because we always have. Gay liberation did not end so that Mr. Ulick, the self-crowned czar of queer conformity, could tell us what is safe to think. Now, I would also say that at that conversation between Minaj and Erika Kirk, Minaj said something very, very good. She said, and I'll be quoting here at length, and bear with me here because it's a great quote. Minaj was asked by Erika Kirk, why can people no longer discuss openly controversial ideas? Why are they afraid of doing so? Minaj answered the following, and I quote, because people are no longer using their minds, their brains. So right now, just imagine, we're not allowed to have a different opinion anymore. We're not allowed to think out loud anymore. This is not what the world used to feel like, especially for the young people. I don't want them growing up in a world where they feel like that. They deserve for their voices to be heard. They have valid feelings, and they are thinking about things, and it deserves attention. We should listen to what they're saying. And if you're growing up in a world that tells you it's taboo to say something the masses don't agree with, that's not okay, and we're not going to have it." End quote. Minaj is absolutely right. Oh, but what is that I see on the horizon? Huh. It's Ulick's awareness team on the prowl. They sniffed my heretical thoughts a mile away and heard the words of a strong, independent black artist. A woman. They don't like that. I better scram before they catch me. LGB Alliance Switzerland? Over and out.